Hello, everyone. Today is July 26, 2024, and this is a video response for King Frank. If you don't know who he is, look up his channel. His profile should be like an angel and whatnot. He's not a very big YouTuber, but he's just one of those smaller ones that want to create videos and lifestyles, that kind of stuff. So go subscribe to him. And this video is a response to the Civil War video that he made. And for some of those people who are interested, bear with me here, or some people that are interested in King Frank's videos also watch this as well. It's because I commented on him that I respectfully agree with his viewpoint. And I actually had a feeling at one point, and I did mention to one of my previous videos that I did even have a feeling that there was going to be a civil war. But let me tell you at the beginning, all right? King Frank, this is for you. You know, King Frank, I had a feeling long before 2010 that this world and the economy that we're living in, we were never, ever, I never even ever had any idea or thought that we would ever possibly undergo a second civil war. You know, my possibilities of thought on how America would fall, natural disaster, it's either biblical prophecy or whatnot, nuclear warfare, that kind of stuff. But never have I ever thought of a second civil war, because I've always told myself it's not possible. It's not possible. I mean, look at us. I mean, sure, we get mad at each other, but we don't want to kill each other now, do we? And it turns out, after all those years, our father says that this world, that America, he thinks that America, and it's possible, and I'm actually believing him, because he knows, as a, how do I say this, a veteran who fought overseas in the United States Marine Corps back in 2003, in the Battle of Baghdad in Iraq. He would come back, and you know, he was not only a regular soldier, but he was also part of the intelligence group. And he would tell me, all sorts of these things, and he thinks that a second civil war is going to be the end of a democracy. I didn't think so. I never believed it. I never even thought about that in a million years, until there were signs, violent signs, January 6th. Surprising. That, like, for a second, it was like my eyes were popping out of my skull. Not literally, it's just like metaphorically, that these people would go out of their way. I don't care if they were Republican or Democrat. I don't care what supporters there. They had the audacity to go to Washington, D.C. and enter the capital of Washington, D.C. Not the White House, the capital of Washington, D.C. And you mean to tell me, well, then I was starting to have some feeling, oh my God, there's going to be a second civil war. And then look at now. Like at the beginning of like Joe Biden's presidency, guess what happened? There was also another sign, King Frank. And this is something I read on the news as well, but I don't really pay attention to the news as much, as because I know what they're doing. But there's some truth to it. That the Texas border crisis, that Texas officially stated that they don't want any part of the federal government. They don't want that. They don't want any part of the federal government because there's too many immigrants walking into this country. They're settling here, and we're giving them all these opportunities just so eventually down the road, supposedly our own government was trying to get rid of Trump. I know, King Frank, you may not be a Trump supporter. I don't really care for the guy either. I don't really care what you support, as long as you're living life, and that's what's good for you. It's just that I never thought of a second civil war ever possibly happen. And then now, they kind of think about it. Look at all these violent protesters that are attacking law enforcement. Like, look at that. Like, it's happening in the cities. And sooner or later, these peaceful protesters you're not going to see are no longer going to be protests. We're done talking of our words. we're done like using our words. We're gonna use action. And then that's what I'm kind of seeing in cities, and there's actual proof. And I've seen the full movie. I know you mentioned about on the second Civil War video, which was 15 hours ago, that you've seen a little bit of the film, and I'm not spoiling for any of you, but I have seen the full film, and I have to say it didn't make any sense, but I understand the meaning of it. We are so blinded by our own violence intentions. Look at this. Look at all these groups fighting each other. Ridiculous. Politics. You know what I actually believed King Frank? That the reason why we would fight in a second Civil War, take a guess. We probably would have thought maybe immigrants, we would go to war. No. Oh, but guess what's even more stupid? If the first Civil War had its semi-stupidity reasons, talk about modern society, because we're about to be going to war over politics. We're about to be fighting each other over political reasons. Manipulation, lying to each other, that some of the people are now realizing. And let's face it, society is now crumbling. I don't care, but I do have some questions, King Frank. Even though Trump miraculously survived a bullet, even though it only hit his top of his ear, I'm very curious how you never have any thought that Trump will actually, well, how do I say this? Well, I doubt that Trump will ever unite the Democrats either, because let's face it, he may be a businessman, and our father admit that he's kind of an asshole too, but he's not good with politics, and I know you're not into that stuff, and that's what it kind of looks like. And that's good, man. I wish I had the same lifestyle as you. I would hate it because, at first I would not like it because I'm used to growing up in houses. But I loved nature. I love it. I went camping. Of course, it's not the same as living as your own when society collapses. This is what it's being brought up. What's being brought up is that people are now becoming more violent. Some people, after Trump's survival, now are confessing that I wish Trump died. Those people should have been in jail. Should have been. But instead they roam your streets, and now they encourage that, and now this uproars some of the people to do the same thing, but this time use action instead of words. So yes, I do possibly believe that a second Civil War will happen. And my grandfather told me that it just wouldn't, But my father believes it, and I believe it. I only believe it because I've done my research. I know what the news is capable of. I've been awake. I've been awake ever since 2010. I don't know where some of the other people went. We were so blinded by politics, manipulation. I wasn't. I was awake. My father already knew what the world was like. This is why, as a veteran, he says that after the Iraq War, he felt like it was worth it because we'd done some good, but then he also felt like it wasn't actually worth it because of the people on how they treated them afterwards. Because the government has its own way after soldiers, after coming back. Yeah, you get all these benefits of a VA or whatnot, some other stuff, but it is just something else. But King Frank, if you're watching this, bear with me because I think you have some fair points. I remember watching the video that you had some fair points that people are just now sick and tired and fed up with the government. And let's face it, I'm even fed up too. Because what's the point of letting all these people to just use the same tactic, but it doesn't matter what political party they oppose? And get this, King Frank, I don't know if you want this, but you may be awake to say this, but some people, in what I've heard, just for an anti-prophet, if you've ever seen his channel or go on YouTube Shorts, then see what I mean. That anti-prophet suggests that, get this, a two-party system that is so manipulating each other and draws people like us who don't really care much about politics, but they try to make you think like it is just so you can join on a side and start voting. When in reality, if you watch any of my videos, the reality is politicians don't really hate each other. They don't. Because you know why? Because in reality, they get paid just as the same. So what's the difference? So why do people say it's different? Well, it's the news who makes the difference. They control your media. How do you think one side on the other party, like a Democrat or Republican, says negative things back and forth when you know in reality it's the same tactic? It's divide and conquer. This is how it works. But the point that I'm getting at is I've heard some people not only the way they think they can fix a two-party system is to not by colliding and cut the nonsense. They think that some of them think that we should add in a 2 more party system. Oh my God. And you know what that's going to look like? America is going to be divided in 4 sections. Don't care what it is. I don't care if it's an independent party. They still are attacking another. It's still manipulation. It's still getting you guys to vote. That kind of stuff. It's nonsense. I mean, you realize that yourself. It's nonsense. You don't want to get involved with that stuff. You know that the world is getting fed up, and I agree. I never had a job yet. I'm still looking for that. But right now, it's just so hard with like the world that we're living in. I don't know why, but my dad was so lucky growing up in the early 80s and he grew up in the 70s. And look at me. Grew up in the 2000s, 2003. I was born in 2003. And my father was still in war at the time. And this is kind of unfair. You know, because why do I have to live in a world but why me? But why all of a sudden? We could be living in a much better world, but instead politics play a part. And this is the part where some of these people are going to fight each other. I never would have thought of that. Never. But now it is possible. Some people may say it's like they think like, don't worry, once Trump's back in office, he can fix everything. Let's face it. He's not uniting the Democrats. He's not. He genuinely thinks that the Democrats were the ones controlling everything. They weren't controlling everything. The government was controlling everything. How do you think these two-party systems, like I said, these Democrats and Republicans, they don't really hate each other. The only reason they're after Trump is because he's a businessman, not a politician. And politicians are more easy to be manipulated because they can't make their own buck besides live on from you. But of course, they're not going to tell you that because they want to make them sound promising. And that's the whole trick. They do this every single time. Whenever governor or president gets in office, it doesn't matter. Some of these politicians will not defend for you. They will run away and they will hide behind the most powerful people. And if you are after them, they're probably running away because they know that they're weak. They use big words, act like they're tough, and act like they can control you. But once the people are in power, once they finally are, that gets them scared because they're losing solutions, and they have no choice but to run away. They have no choice. But King Frank, this video is for you. I notice you're not a very big YouTuber as well, so I want to help you actually grow your channel a little bit because I feel like you should be noticed because you're a prime example of what it's like to work, live life, that kind of stuff, and how it's difficult, you as a person, to do that stuff. I'm not experienced like you are, man. You have the experience. You know what it's like to get a job. I've slightly known. But it was more favors than a job. I haven't gotten paid. Well, some of it I do get paid for favors, but it's not hourly like a regular job does. And that's something, you know, King Frank. And you're absolutely right. And for some of those who are listening, we are slowly on a brink of a civil war. I don't care if some people are going to over-exaggerate the truth. No. People are just saying that because they think like if Trump actually did get killed, then a possible civil war would just break out. But now some people are saying, I don't think a civil war will ever be happening. Let's face it. Some of the people who think a civil war might not happen are probably some of those ones who think that that a state can peacefully secede from the United States. Some of those people may think like that, who think second civil war won't happen. I mean, there's a such thing as a peaceful secede from the United States, which is stupid because there is no such thing. We tried that before, and guess where that got us? Hell. But King Frank, if you're watching this, I totally agree with you. And I did mention that I am making a video for you. But please, check out this channel. Don't subscribe if you want. Just please watch, And I definitely want to hear your opinion, what you have to think about this. And maybe some other way, we could eventually, I don't know. You seem like a nice guy. It's reasonable. I'm not here to just talk about politics. We could talk about other things. I would like to meet you one day. We could do it in person or hopefully in a million years, but I doubt that's going to happen when I become filmmaker or run for governor or that kind of stuff. But who knows? These are like down the years. And I think whenever I reach that point, there's not even going to be a point. We're already at the brink where everything is collapsing. Like, forget it. Do I want to give up on my dream, though? No. I'm still going to try. Even if society's on the collapse and there's nothing I could do about it, then oh well. We should have learned from our mistakes. The signs were there. You were too blinded. Some of them were too blinded. And it's pathetic for some people who just use violence outwards and being tricked. If it's anything, he's right. That I told my father that, well, I had a possibility of what would a second Civil War look like, and I told him it was probably going to be more. It's probably going to be not a North and South situation. It's going to be a rebellion against the government. That's what I think it's going to look like. I've always predicted that. I had a feeling it was going to be like that. And our father says, yeah, a civil war always ends out being a rebellion. It's never been about a North and Side thing. Well, maybe. I don't know. But I totally agree. And I have seen the film, okay, Frank, but like I said, I'm not doing it. But the points and the obvious state of what this film's trying to get at and compare it to now, we're on a brink. And they say this movie's trash and it means nothing. But you got to look at the meaning of it is that it's violence. People are dying. Let's face it. Your neighbor across are shooting your neighbor across that used to be your friend, and now he's politically influenced, and now he's shooting at you because he knows that you're either a supporter or, I don't know, he thinks that you're a supporter because it's what the news believes. Let's face it. I have my own conspiracy theories, King Frank, and I know you are not a fan of that. But I'm not one of those people who think lizard people or aliens are real. Let's face it. My father was one who got me into the real truth of reality, like a new truth of reality, and it makes more common sense. You think about it. But other than that, yeah, King Frank, I'm not one of those people who wear tinfoil hats and think lizard people and aliens are real. No, I don't believe any of that stuff is. But I actually do believe that even in the beginning of 2003, that this was going to be the downfall of America. I knew it. I had a feeling in the beginning of 2000s when there was a huge lie from George W. Bush. I'm pretty sure you've been around to know that George Bush lied to the American people saying that there were weapons of mass destruction after 9/11 because it's a scare tactic. Even though attack really did happen, I don't care if some people say it's government plan. It's not government plan. I have a feeling that we allowed it to happen because we know this was going to be an opportunity to get the people all scared and wanted, because that's in the reality of it. I think that's how a second Civil War is going to end out like. These people like us are either scared or worried that it's going to happen. And guess what they do? They use it scare tactic, and they try to get you involved and say, the left is trying to go after you. No, the right is trying to go after you. This kind of nonsense. Like, you're falling for it. They want you to get prepared. They want you to fight while these people, like, fuel up their anger and violence, and that way they have a reason why they want you to vote for them. It's a scare tactic, and they want the violence to happen either. They don't care. They don't want to solve it. Because they know the government has their own reasons to say, let them fight it out. Because you know why I think after the second Civil War is over, the government's going to rise up again. Like, there's going to be a good person, and they're going to say, "Hey everyone, we notice everybody's tired and we're sick of fighting. Let's face it, guess what? Well, it's probably stupid, but I think it's either could go out to it's either our own government runs away, then comes back after the war is settled, like we're done fighting. We need to come to our senses and realize that war is not what we want, even though the damage has already been done. And I have a feeling that they're going to come back and they're going to redo the whole thing after all these years, and they want you to trust them. Or the government has failed to leave this country. All these corrupt leaders and politicians get overthrown, and the people are now in charge. Guess what? The people has won. We won a tyrannical government, and I even said at one point that, well, I don't really encourage violence, King Frank, but there's going to have to be some point in time where a government's going to use the same tactic over and over again, and you probably don't care if it's Trump or Biden that's going to get to it. They're all saying the same thing. But let's face it, Trump's not a politician, he's a businessman, and they're trying to go after him the most, and they're trying to spark one. Both sides are trying to spark a civil war. I know some Republicans that are backing up Trump. They're weaponizing him, and they're going like, yeah, this is what he wanted. You know, the left is trying to get rid of him, and if that's going to happen, we're to encourage civil war. Yeah, that's your politician talking to you, encouraging a war, and so is the left. Stupid. And then they want you to listen to them because they know like it's going to possibly happen because they know you guys are sick of it. But they're using you. They're weaponizing it. They're weaponizing the party that you represent, and they're using it against you, and they're using it against you to make you think that the sides are really going after you. They're going to take away everything if you don't vote for us. And which is stupid because I know I have out of a possibility. Do I think it's going to happen this year, King Frank? I have my doubts. Maybe it will happen, but it's possible. Anything could spark it. Anything. Maybe Trump will not get so lucky the next time because we know how people are getting now violent and whatnot. For some of the people are now getting violent, and it's always happening in the States. You know, King Frank, this is the possibility of what a civil war could undergo. All right, here's the possibilities. You might live in a rural area, and you said you were escaping the city, and that's good. But unfortunately, if a second civil war did start, guess what's going to happen? All the people are going to panic, and they're going to steal all the resources in cities, and they're going to realize that there is no more resources left for them to live. And then here's what's going to happen. Some of those people are going to move in rural areas, and they're going to drain us. And guess what that's going to look like? Well, we're practically not going to get anything unless you know how to grow your own food, unless you know how to do your own stuff. But that's your own stuff, and you're going to defend for your stuff. You're probably not a violent person. I don't encourage you to be a violent person. You should just be you. That's good. At least you got away with all the nonsense because you know that society is about to collapse. You know it, and I know it too. As a person that's living in a rural area that lives in a house in AC and plays video games. But at least I know the truth of reality, and some people may not realize that because they're too blinded. You know, what I'm trying to do is for videos, I'm not trying to influence hate speech. And I'm telling you, I am not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not either one of these. I don't see these parties reasonable because let's face it, the parties are not what it used to be anymore. I can't say for sure what has started this division between these two, but I feel like it always has ever since the beginning of 2000s. I feel that they kind of sparked it a little bit. Sure, 9/11, everyone's attacked, you know, terrorists attacked, that kind of stuff. And then later on, we went from politics after the war. Really? Yeah. I guess that just went like that, huh? And yeah, and maybe down the road, we'll just start calling out each other. Acting like, oh, Bush was the evil man. He's a very evil man. And you know the party that represents that kind of stuff. You know, some numbnut must have thought it was all right to just spark it. But hey, the government encourages it. This is how they get people to control an office. And let's face it, King Frank, Biden wasn't really running your country. It was the government controlling him and pressuring him in the country. Because you really think as an old man like him even knows how to run his country? No. No. And do you think Kamala Harris, if she was ever in, she's going to be controlled too. Let's face it. She's going to be living off from us as people, our tax dollars and what. And I think that's good how some people are fed up. I think that's good. I think what's happening the most is what I say is that it's happening in the cities. I think people are slowly being fed up in the cities, and I think that's going to be the worst part. Cities, and anyone who lives in a city is going to be fed up with this kind of nonsense. And let's face it, because it is. Other than that, it's... Yeah, okay, I totally agree with you. There is a possible chance of a second civil war, but I'm pretty sure I did have to ask, you don't have any thoughts, or maybe, like, you never had any thoughts that maybe Trump will come back and maybe fix all this? I mean, you gotta think of it as like this. The second civil war talk has also been mentioned before, but people have been given up on it because the news tried to manipulate it a little, and now it's being brought up again. Which is, like I said, it's a scare tactic. So you got to be careful. It's either it's true or it's not true. I actually believe a second civil war is going to happen. I don't care how many times they turn it off and off. I don't care if they turn it on and off. No, I actually believe a second civil war is going to happen. Because let's face it, look how divided we are. I don't care if our politicians say, this is bad, this is bad, this is not good for the country. Our politicians say that. You want to believe them after they're the ones who already made the damage? They're already wanting to provoke it. They're telling us it's not okay, but they're the ones actually provoking. That's stupid. Some of these politicians actually say that. Can you believe the nonsense, King Frank? You probably do. Now I agree. Well, you either don't agree because I'm talking to the screen right now. But other than that, yes, yeah. I would love to meet you one day, and I think we should talk about more of this kind of stuff. We could talk about other things, like I don't mind Warzone talk. You probably don't play video games because you probably don't have the time for that, and that's good. You know, video games, it's eventually getting boring for me. You know, it's the same stuff and the same content. It's the same thing that they've been doing it for over in the beginning of 2000s. It's just looking back at the history. It's the same stuff. I always knew that whenever games do this kind of stuff, they're just milking the franchise for more money. And it's pathetic. Let's face it. Just like our politicians who think like, oh, it's not okay to be violent, even though they're the ones provoking, you know, some of them are the ones who provoke it. Which is stupid. Absolutely stupid. And I'm glad you actually are one of those people who are fully aware. I mean, I have a lot of views, and I think that's completely fine. But hey, you know what? Do what you do. And if you like this video, I want to hear your own opinion about this. I really do. And if you're not really a fan of it, and I understand, don't comment on this. Don't subscribe to it. Just watch. You know, hear what I have to say. Either you agree with some of the stuff or not. And that's all right. Believe what you want to believe. Just live the life how you want to live the life. And I think that's good. But for some of those people who are watching this, and even you, King Frank, stay strong, stay healthy, stay smart, that kind of stuff. Oh, and definitely be kind to one another. King Frank, you look like the type of person who already knows how to be kind and have sympathy for other people as well. And when you know when to not trust and give in to other people, you look like you look like a very well reasonable man who knows what they're doing. You know, you're not some cuck who thinks that they're better than everyone. Oh, I know everyone. No one's gonna, you know, that kind of stuff. Acting like they're better. You know, acting kind of selfish. You know, you don't look like you're that kind of person. But how do I know? I never met you in person, so. Unless I see the chances of you actually going out, you know, we actually meet in person one day, and hopefully a second civil war doesn't start by then. It eventually gets resolved. Everybody realizes the violence that they're living in, but it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. I think this is kind of the beginning of it. You know, I think once the politicians start provoking it, as they usually do, the people are gonna be violent towards one another, and they're going to attack. Now it's gonna start as the National Guard being deployed, and people are gonna attack the National Guard. Like, it's over. It's over. But hopefully we would like to meet each other by then. I think that'd be pretty great. But anyway, thank you for listening, everyone, and even you, King Frank, because this video is for you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.